It's written that on the eve of Emancipation Day, slaves left the plantations for the hills and mountains to greet the Augus Mawnin sun. That, I imagine, would have been the case on an estate such as that which once existed at this site. Today we come to you from the campus of the largest university in the region. We are next to what is called the Aqueduct, a reminder of what existed in the 18th century in St. Andrew. A little later we'll tell you about the stone-cut Roman-style aqueducts. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay with us. It's our special edition of Jamaica Magazine on this Emancipation Day weekend.
This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the Zika, chikungunya, and dengue viruses. Protect yourself from the bite of this mosquito. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Slaves had no reproductive rights. Many slave women were raped and abused. Emancipation paved the way for full freedom, leading to a modern society in which women could decide if and when to have children. With that right comes responsibility. And this week's guest on Issues joins us now to make the case for responsible family planning.
Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Today we talk about Zika and pregnancy, a critically important issue. We have with us to discuss this issue Dan Thomas, who is Director of Communications and Public Relations at the National Family Planning Board. We thank you for your company. Good to have you on the show.
Greetings to you.
Dan.
A pleasure.
Good, great. Zika and pregnancy, as I said, it's a critically important issue. What are the messages coming out of the Family Planning Board?
What we are trying to do is through our latest campaign, because as you can well appreciate, the National Family Planning Board Sexual Health Agency is in fact an agency of the Ministry of Health. So we are an integral part of getting the message out on Zika. There's a commonality in what we're trying to achieve, and that is for members of our society to act responsibly in the wake of the Zika virus in Jamaica. So the messages that we're putting out, disseminating to the public, in essence, what we are trying to get them to do is, one, exercise responsibility, whatever their option, whether it is in terms of the use of a contraceptive method, whether it is delaying pregnancy, or if they are pregnant, if the women are pregnant. And it's not just the woman's responsibility, because as you can well appreciate, a man has to be in the picture for there to be a pregnancy. So based on that association, we're also targeting men, for them to also buy into the message of responsible sexual behavior, sexual practices. So for example, what we have been trying to do, and we had a campaign, a Choose To campaign, you're probably familiar with it, that has been resuscitated once again, because what we're trying to ensure is that individuals utilize contraceptive methods in this fight against Zika. Because what we're also trying to do is minimize the number of adverse pregnancy outcomes, fetal outcomes, adverse pregnancies. So through the use of contraceptive methods, and in this particular message is using two methods through the Choose To campaign, the condom plus another safe and reliable method. That way, you're preventing the sexual transmission of the Zika virus, because that has now been found by the World Health Organization to actually exist.
Yes?
Yes.
Zika can be sexually transmitted.
Right. There's some 12 documented case studies on the sexual transmission of the Zika virus. So we are being proactive rather than reactive, and we are cautioning our population that, one, utilize contraceptive methods in your sexual activity, and remember the condom is just one method. A condom can burst during sexual activity. Back up that condom use with a reliable contraceptive method to prevent pregnancy.
I want us to explore that when we come back from this break. Dan Thomas is Director of Communications and Public Relations at the National Family Planning Board, sexual agency. And she's talking to us about a really crucial issue. Don't go away, we take a break.
This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the Zika, chikungunya, and dengue viruses. Search for its breeding sites and destroy them. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back, Director of Communications and Public Relations at the National Family Planning Board, Sexual Health Agency. Dan Thomas is here talking to us about Zika, its relation with the concerns that pregnant women have. So this critical issue of the effect of microcephaly, which is one of the possible outcomes of the Zika virus. Let's talk about that. What are the consequences of this? What would a person have to deal with in caring for a child with microcephaly?
Have you ever seen the diagrams? Because there's been quite a bit of information that has been floating around. With the baby who has microcephaly, you will find that their head is abnormally small. And a correlate of that is a small brain.
So it affects cognitive abilities?
So it is going to affect cognitive ability. So that, in essence, can also lead to, and various individuals with microcephaly, it has been shown, don't display the very same cognitive issues.
Okay, so it varies.
So it varies. So you might find that a child is, even though their head is smaller, their abilities are a little better than someone else's. Epilepsy has also been associated with microcephaly.
I see.
But
seizures.
Precisely. And if you've ever had to deal with anyone who has seizures, think of how frequent those episodes are.
So disruptive.
How disruptive, how traumatizing it can be for the family and for the child.
That's right.
This child might be crying literally non-stop because of the pain that they're in. So what we don't want, we want Jamaicans to be proactive. Again, not reactive. This is reason enough for you to stop and think. Would you want to put yourself through, it's not even like 18 years where you can say, okay, at the end of 18 years, the child will be off to wherever. This child is going to be with you for a very long time. The decision is yours. Right now, you have the power in your hands. The decisions you make now can affect your future. It can affect the future of this child.
And there's also an ethical responsibility we have to the unborn. We have to our children. When we are making decisions, we have to think about the impact of those decisions on human lives.
Precisely, because it's not exactly ranked at the same level, but it's just like the pregnant woman who is cautioned not to smoke because of the effect it can have on the baby.
And who does nonetheless because of her desire. That's a kind of a selfishness that is really criminal. Because it's affecting the life of someone else. So that people react to this matter of delaying pregnancy by saying, well, that's our right. Where does government come from now, telling us what to do and how to conduct our lives?
You do, in fact, have sexual and reproductive rights, You do have them. But it is how you exercise those rights with responsibility that matters. In your delaying of pregnancies, we realize that abstinence might be a far-fetched wish on our part. However, employ contraceptive methods. There are many out there that you can use. You have no excuse not to. As part of our initiative, as we work with the Ministry of Health in getting the message out, what we have done is we've ensured that every regional health authority that has oversight for the many clinics across the island, we've ensured that they all have contraceptive supplies, where there's no stock out. Contraceptives widely available. Regional health authorities have the responsibility of passing it down to the clinics that are under, and there are 4 regional health authorities, by the way. They have the responsibility of ensuring that the clinics that fall within their purview actually have adequate stocks. The National Family Planning Board, as the agency of government charged with the responsibility of procuring contraceptive methods on behalf of the people of Jamaica, we certainly have held up our side of the bargain and ensure that they're here. So you have options. You have Depo-Provera, you have the condoms, there's the injectable, Depo-Provera the injectable, there's Jadel, the implant, oral contraceptive, popularly called the pill. They're all there.
They're readily available.
They're readily available. You have no excuse
So it's
not
for
to use a method.
individuals now to exercise
Responsibility.
And this exercise of responsibility is not just for the women, it's for the men.
It's for the men as well.
Men and women to
Ladies,
exercise.
when you go to the clinic to get your method, collect condoms for the men as well.
Okay. Advice from Diane Thomas, who is Director of Communications and Public Relations at the National Family Planning Board Sexual Health Agency. We thank you for your company on Issues and Answers. Next week I'll be back. Until then, Ian Bourne wishing you a pleasant day.
Nutritious food, succulent dishes, superior workmanship, and excellent service. Jamaica is on the go. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Let's harness the indomitable spirit of our most valued resource, our people. Let's support our local businesses. After all, buying Jamaican means building Jamaica.
Our next feature, partnering with the European Union in a meaningful way.
Over the past few years, the European Union, the EU, has been a key partner in promoting Jamaica's development agenda by facilitating increased export competitiveness and food safety and security. The Economic Partnership Agreement (EPA) capacity building project is one of the tools being used by the European Union, EU, and Government of Jamaica to improve and build infrastructure that supports our export industry. The EU-funded project, which is being implemented by the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, seeks to improve our nation's productivity and output in agriculture, resulting in economic growth.
The LEPA agreement, Economic Partnership Agreement, was signed in 2008. All the members of CARIFORUM and as well as the 28 member states of the European Union. It's a trade, but it's also a development agreement. It also foresaw the idea of getting support from the European Union to the different CARIFORUM countries to export and have access to the European market. The type of activities that we have been implementing here basically was to upgrade laboratories to be able to test the products to comply to European standards, so therefore raising the standard. That includes not only providing the equipment but also the training.
Result number 1 of the project: increased capacity for product testing and certification for compliance with international standards has been achieved. This means that a number of public sector food testing laboratories have undergone the accreditation process and are now ISO 17025 accredited.
To be ISO 17025 accredited means that tests of Jamaican foods being exported to other countries by ISO 17025 laboratories will be readily accepted at ports of entries worldwide and will not be subject to delays that can adversely affect the quality of the produce.
The laboratories that have benefited from the accreditation process include the Microbiology and Chemistry Laboratories at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, the BSJ, Microbiology, Residue Testing and Parasitological Laboratories at the Veterinary Services Division of the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, MICAF, Pesticide Research Laboratory of the Chemistry Department at the University of the West Indies, MONA, Plant Pathology Laboratory of the Plant Protection Unit, MICAF, and the Plant Virology Laboratory at the Plant Protection Unit at the Ministry.
We received a lot of renovations. So our lab was actually split, walls done, cupboards, tiles, everything was done to meet more international standards. Then at the front of our building, we had 2 new rooms being made. One for a submission room where we'd meet our clients before they'd come straight into the building. And as a quarantine building, that was actually a big no-no.
During 2014, we received 7 pieces of equipment valued at over 30 million Jamaican dollars. These were used to strengthen our quality system and help assist us towards having the labs accredited.
The Pesticide Research Laboratory has received assistance in the form of refurbishment of the laboratory, training of the laboratory staff, as well as analytical equipment and related supplies.
One of the basic piece of equipment we got was a LCMS, valued at about 350,000 euros. We have also had an incinerator, we've had water softener, we've had an oven dryer, and we also had several training opportunities for staff abroad.
The plant quarantine plant produce inspection branch at MICAF has also benefited from the EPA project.
EPA is pivotal in our safeguarding effort because there are times when we intercept things that are imported that have pests on them. These must be destroyed. And so the incinerator that we are getting through the EPA is going to play that very special role.
The long-term impact is pretty much one that will now allow us to conduct the relevant tests in compliance with the markets that we're trying to access so that our farmers, our processors, our producers can export their products and have them tested at the level where we are satisfied that we can compete with any developed country in the world.
They have allowed us to make the test methods complete in a shorter time. They have allowed us to automate test methods, and they have allowed us to meet turnaround times in a more satisfactory manner for our clients.
But that's not all. Another important result of the project is increased awareness of international standards and technical requirements in the public sector.
Exposure of public officers to advanced training in food safety and other related standards, training for specific assessments on animal and plant health issues can only strengthen Jamaica's institutional framework and facilitate increased exports by private sector stakeholders.
And the EPA team continues to work on the sensitization of and dialogue with the private sector on technical barriers to trade, TBT, and sanitary and phytosanitary issues, SPS.
The private sector is directly involved in the production and export of food and agro-processed products and deals directly with the different trade issues. Food exporters must meet the TBS and SPS requirements of the countries importing their goods.
So it's clear that the EPA capacity building project has already started to significantly transform the Jamaican business sector, resulting in sustainable and economic development. And the EPA2 project further enhances this transformation. The EPA2 financing agreement was signed in November 2014 and is being implemented on a phased basis. A part of this agreement focuses on providing assistance to coffee and spices industries, 2 sectors with the potential for increasing exports from Jamaica to the European Union.
EPA1 project focused only on institutional aspects and trying to bring the laboratories to ISO standards. And the second one built on this, and then is when we have introduced the specific support to the 2 industries. The particularity, in order to do that, we have got an agreement with the International Financial Corporation, which is part of the World Bank Group, which specializes in support to the private sector, and they are responsible for the implementation of this component of the program.
The Economic Partnership Agreement Capacity Building Project will continue to contribute to Jamaica's national export strategy, supporting Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan, to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
Stand up and get in the race.
I can become the master of my destiny.
Step up your stride, make we work like a harder. Do it like Veronica, bolt and a supper.
We can rise above the challenges and shine.
Was with passion in your heart. Make a plan and stop all the idling. You think I saw? We reach out the edging. I can, you can. Like our Olympians, every Jamaican can.
On Emancipation Day, scores of slaves crowded into churches across the island. I would like to imagine that this university chapel, now famous as a romantic setting for weddings, was where several slaves knelt and prayed for freedom. One of our national heroes, born close to this property, built several churches and was an active evangelist.
In the early 1800s, the wealthy Scottish planter Joseph Gordon owned a large sugar estate in the parish of St. Andrew and lived in a beautiful Georgian great house on its grounds. In 1820, Joseph Gordon fathered a son with a slave woman. He was named George William Gordon. George William was not born a slave, although he was born before emancipation. He spent most of his childhood in the house set up by his father for his children born of this slave woman. From an early age, George William's father noticed his keen interest in books and encouraged him to study. The young Gordon was also a great orator and took part in religious debates at an early age. Gordon's commitment to religion never waned. He started an independent Baptist organization and erected a tabernacle in Kingston where he often preached. Gordon helped his followers to open chapels in many parts of the island and also ordained several deacons, including Paul Bogle of Stony Gut. In later years, this educated gentleman became a successful businessman. He concentrated on buying and leasing lands, which he cut up and sold or sublet cheaply to the Negro peasants, who at the time had great difficulty obtaining land. He also sold them livestock and organized a marketing system through which they could sell their produce at fair prices. Emancipation was not a welcome change for most of the planter class in Jamaica, and many tried by various means to hinder the progress of blacks. Gordon was a member of the wealthy middle class who did his best to help the free slaves. When he entered politics, he used this medium to speak out frequently about the unjust treatment of this group. By 1865, the social and economic crisis in Jamaica had reached a dangerous level. The harshness and insensitivity of the then Governor Edward Eyre did nothing to relieve the tension. Gordon was outraged by the conditions he saw. Although he wanted to see a change in the social and material conditions of the blacks, he never advocated violence as a means of achieving this change. As a member of the Jamaican Assembly, he spoke out on behalf of the poor Negroes and bitterly criticized Governor Eyre. It was therefore ironic that he was blamed for instigating and supporting the Morant Bay Rebellion in St. Thomas. Despite the lack of evidence, Governor Eyre issued a warrant for his arrest. On hearing this, George William Gordon gave himself up to the authorities and was quickly taken to Morant Bay, where he was illegally tried and sentenced to death. Gordon was hanged with 18 other persons on October 23, 1865. The residential area, now known as Cherry Gardens, is the former estate where George William Gordon was born.
The aqueduct, situated at the University of the West Indies, Mona, once carried water throughout the Mona estate. It forms part of the Pepin-Mona Aqueduct, built by Thomas Hope Elliston in 1758 and was functional up to 1908. A fine example of civil engineering, the aqueduct served the Mona, Hope and Pepin estates with water from the Hope River. Today, the aqueduct at UWI Mona, more known by students of the campus as the Ruins, sits in splendor at the university. The brick structure stretches from behind the University Chapel, runs by the Ring Road up to the Assembly Hall.
So I want to thank you. I thank you for all you've done for me.
At times I feel so lonely, don't know where to go, where to turn to. I try to search for you, but sometimes it's like I can't find you. Then sometimes it would seem you are too busy to even attend to me. And sometimes I stretch my hands to reach your hands, but they're not visible for me to see. Whoa, the season seems dry, but I know I'm not alone. I'll be replenished, for I know He who comforts me will never leave me, even when this is finished. So many situations surround us, left and right, up and down, worries bombard us. But I just came to tell you, better yet reassure you, that God is fighting for you. Your end will be greater than your beginning. Access granted, Red Sea parted with God before you, beside you. There's no stopping you, just send up the praise. The bank of Christ me investing, so me reap me reward in a blessing. Me bank faith, prayer and fasting, praise and worship, tithes and offering. And when me check me account in the Lord, me coulda believe how me interest large. Me say God bless me, God bless me, God bless me, bless till me can't even talk. I'm banking in Jesus, bank of life, bank of Jehovah, bank of Christ, banking in the Lord and everything is alright. Number one, trust it, bank we not have to think twice with Jesus. Bank of life, bank of Jehovah, bank of Christ, banking in the Lord and everything is alright. Number one, trust it, bank we not have to think twice. Thank you.
As we wait tomorrow's sunrise, let's think on how the slaves must have felt on the eve of Emancipation Day. Mixture of excitement and fear, perhaps. Join us during this week as we come to you from interesting sites across the country. I'm Adrian Atkinson, signing out from the Aqueduct at the University of the West Indies, Mona. Happy holidays.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.